what have you done something that you need to be forgiven for? And this is when Sarah tells him that I killed my brother. And he says, well, was it by accident? And she says, well, you will find out everything very soon, because she's like, bro, I'm the talk of the town. Yeah, but then it was like, Elgin awkwardly got up like, well, let me get the fuck out of here. And I was like, nah, player, you went up in there flirting, cuz that's what you wanted.
Sit down.
That's what you wanted, shawty. That's what you wanted. Who was dying and was rich, he wanted to play the game. He wanted to be in the game. What if that old lady is somebody playing the game? They're in the VR game playing the game, because I find it incredibly funny that she drops that medicine off.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 5th episode of From. We are going to be talking about the 5th episode, and we are the Watchers on the Wall. So let's get started with
interesting episode.
Ronald on the bus.
Yeah, but before that, is Ethan going to be the new Victor? It looks like they're going to actually kill a monster. And we were right about a bunch of our theories as it pertains to individual characters, such as Christy's fiance. But anyway, so it starts off and we see our favorite character. He's inside of the bus.
Your favorite character.
He's inside the bus, and of course the monsters are doing what the monsters try to do. They're trying to convince him to open up, and he stands his ground. And I think that Go
ahead.
I think that this experience emboldened him, because we see him doing something at the end of the episode. But he stood up to the monsters, which I thought was pretty cool. It then transitions to Boyd, and Tabitha busts in on him at the church, and he's trying to convince Tabitha and Jim that Sarah is a necessary part of the community and that they need to have her around.
So my thing is, how is she so necessary? But Boyd, you're not explaining why she's necessary.
Yeah, Boyd is not doing a good job of clearly articulating those things. He always just kind of is like, "What? We need her. She has answers.
Okay, tell me why.
And when they come in, Tabitha basically cusses her out and says, "Stay away from my family. If you come around my family, I'm gonna fucking kill you." And I mean, really kind of just put it out there, which was, we've never seen that side of her before. But what can you expect when somebody tries to harm your child? You're going to step up to the plate.
Sarah says, I am not strong enough for this. And I question, what is she talking about? She's not strong enough to be the town pariah, which she is now, which is a really cool thing they did in the show. Usually they have one I guess they did do this. They have one sympathetic character who's like, oh, but she's, they're,
Yeah. It's interesting that she said that. Go ahead.
And I just feel like that is such a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's such a cop-out.
Because they're starting to show us a couple of characters, and I think it was the last episode where they said broken people don't last here or something like that. So we're starting to see, we saw Fatimata, she's breaking. Now here we have Sarah, she's talking about, I don't think I can make it here and survive. And I guess dealing with the guilt, and then how people are going to be treating her in the community now that she's back with all that she's done. But it is what it is. And it transitions to Ethan, who's overheard his family discussing Sarah, and he's huddled in his room. And he's sitting in his room, huddled in there, afraid to come out initially. But then they get him to come out of the room, and Ethan says something pretty interesting. He says that he has a desire to confront Sarah, which is really interesting that a kid this young would want to confront her and basically let her know that I'm not afraid of you. And I guess in some form or fashion to kind of express and articulate himself and deal with that traumatic situation in a way that works best for him.
Right. And so
it transitions to Chrissy and her girlfriend or her fiance, and we're really starting to see their relationship, and it seems like her fiance is starting to get acclimated, because this is kind of a touchy-feely scene with them. And we see Christy surprise her with a shirt, and it was his shirt. I'm trying to see what was the name on this shirt.
It's Gilhurst Trucking, and I'm wondering what the significance is of that.
Yeah, because they were definitely emphasizing that. I think we're going to see what that's about at some point in time. So they're having breakfast. She gets this shirt, And this is when Chrissy tells her fiance, she says, I wonder, even though we're together, am I still the same person? And with this particular scene, to me, it was always becoming more and more evident that Chrissy's fiance, she looked like something was wrong with her. She looked like she was a drug addict or something like that. And later on in this episode, we find out that our hunch was actually correct, because we're going to see her do something very, very interesting.
Okay, so Sarah is walking around. She disobeys Boyd, goes to her old house to try and collect her belongings, which someone as dangerous as Sarah, Boyd, you're going to tell her to stay down in the basement. We're not going to lock her up. We're not going to handcuff her. We're not going to secure her in any way. This person who is killed and is responsible for several people's deaths in Fromville. You're just going to tell her, stay there. Makes no sense.
Yeah, very interesting. And then it's just weird. Like, what makes her think that she would just be able to walk around so freely, and that people were not going to look at her in such a weird way? So she goes to the home that used to be her and her brother's home.
Yeah, someone else lives there. People from the bus. I'm assuming it's people from the bus.
Exactly.
And they want her out. They're like, no, you cannot be here. Get the bleep out of here. Get the bleep out of here.
And they're like, who's that?
And
that's the girl who killed her brother. I was like, damn.
She's trying to take his jacket, but the guy is like, no, it's
that's
my
damn jacket now.
Tian-Chen gave it to me, and it doesn't belong. He's dead now, and get out of here. And she's asking about an ornament, and we learn later why the ornament is so significant to her. But she's asking about this ornament, and they pretty much they kick her out.
And then they said, we gave your stuff to Kenny's mom. So
because Kenny's mom's the one who organizes all
keeps
the food,
everything,
all the clothing, and running her little thrift shop boutique.
Exactly. So then it transitions to Jade. He's up in the bar, and Victor comes in there as he's finagling all of these, I guess, beer bottles and things like that he's been forming into the shape of those things that he's been drawing.
Which to me is, at that point in the episode, I knew that this was going to be another filler episode. Because think about it. What is the point of taking all these bottles and putting them in the symbol on the ground? You have a drawn like,
you've been drawing it.
What is
what's going on a little bit?
I don't know. That is the perfect place for Jade to start living in, is the bar.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's funny because Victor walks in and he says to him, you don't look good, to Jade. And it's like, shit, of course, who is looking good in Fromland?
Everybody's depressed.
And this is when Jade says something kind of interesting. He says that the bar is closed, right? And it always made me wonder who was going to take on this role of being the bartender. And Victor and Jade strike this unlikely alliance in that Victor says, if you would play this violin for me, then I will tell you some details that I am aware about. And we kind of had some foreshadowing that this may happen, because when Jade stole Victor's violin from the previous episode, right as Victor was about to enter the room when Jade was playing, he paused for a minute to enjoy the music being played. Then he barged in and said, give me my fucking stuff. So
well, he didn't say that, but
yes. So this is probably one of the, I don't want to say weirdest, but something that definitely had us questioning things. And when it transitions to Jim, and he's saying that he wants to allow Ethan, at his request, to go and speak to Sarah. And I'm like, okay. And then they start to talk a little bit about like how their therapist before, or Ethan's therapist that he had before, told them to allow him to process trauma in ways that is beneficial for him. So this is when Jim comes up with the idea with Tabitha that I'm going to let him talk to Sarah. But the thing that we just were tripped out about is that he was like, no, Tabitha, I don't want you to go. I just want to go with Ethan and talk to Sarah. And a couple of things are weird to me about that. Why would you not want everybody else to go? And then secondly, Jim, you're still recovering from having a house fall on you. You're in no condition. Let's just say Sarah attacked your son again. you're literally in no condition to probably even defend him because you got broken ribs, things are hurt, you're not in good shape. I don't understand why he was just like, no, you can't go, Tabitha. This is something that only me and Ethan are gonna do. I didn't quite understand that. What do you think?
Again,
but then even still, Tabitha's not convinced, and this is when Ethan tells his mom, when you're on a quest, you have to face the scary things, that this is how you take their powers away. And she's like, all right, go ahead and do it.
and this is the point of the episode. Remember, I was saying, like, they are just too. I even said this last year in season 1. They are way too lax about letting their child just roam around, just doing whatever, and just letting him go along. Like, you don't know what's going around here. Somebody just tried to kill your child, and you just like, okay, let him go.
Yeah,
just
she should have.
And then he like lets him get closer.
Yeah, she should have learned her.
Maybe it's a cultural
previously
thing. I don't know, but I don't know.
Because it's like you're in a place where there's no cell phones and stuff. You just letting. I don't know. Like, my child at this point would not be let out of my eyesight, period. You know what I'm saying? In this particular world, especially how crazy things are going.
So Boyd and Donna are talking, okay, at Colony House. And she doesn't understand. Donna says Sarah is degrading Boyd's authority, okay, just by her walking around and people seeing her, right?
And then she said that they're losing the most important thing, which is the faith that the people have in you.
Remember what I said before, though?
What's that?
She said that. I said they're losing something, and I said order.
You did?
I
right
said
during the
order.
episode. Yep.
Because she, by all, intents and purposes, by all the rules that they have laid out, she should be in the box. Which Kenny said, and I mean, everybody knows this. She should be in the box. Yeah. And what little order they have is quickly gonna erode when she sees Sarah. People see Sarah just walking around.
Yep.
And
this is when Donna says something that really gets under Boyd's skin. She says, "Is this really about Sarah, or is this really about your wife, Abby?" And you could just see the frustration kind of on his face when she says that, because I think that struck a chord with him a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm noticing some parallels or some patterns here with the characters. But I'll talk about that later in Candace's crackpot theory of the week.
Yeah. So this is when we see Sarah. She's standing outside of the diner, and she sees Kenny walk out of the diner. And then it's almost as if she was going to take that moment to try to go in, but then Jim and Ethan confront her. And this is when Ethan walks up to her several feet from her, and Jim is behind. Like, you would not be that close to my child, but for some reason he wants to let her be close. And Ethan says, "Only monsters live in the woods. You are a monster, and I am not afraid of you." Which, was a little powerful statement from a kid. But makes me wonder, is this kid about to be set up to be the next Victor? And it transitions to Jade and Victor, and they're walking to the car spot or the dead car parking lot. And this is when Victor says, "The trees are changing and moving again." And Jade says, "Well, what do you mean?" And he just lets it go. Victor has been talking about these trees have been moving for so long. And why does nobody keep asking them, what the fuck are you talking about?
And again, I understand that the chats and the groups are saying, you don't know what a slow burn is. This is a slow burn. The thing about a slow burn with the show is you're not supposed to know that it's a slow burn. You're supposed to be gripped in the story and in what's going on with the characters, and then the rolling of the plot or the continuation of the plot moving forward, and the plot is not moving forward. If it's a slow burn, I should not notice that the plot is not moving forward, or at least going one step up, two steps back, because that's what I feel like we're getting here.
Yeah. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, in this video. It's been really interesting to me how some of the media and then people that I guess, are privy enough to have episodes earlier on, the last 2 or 3 episodes have been talking about just keep holding on, wait to episode 6, wait to episode 6. And I think that's because people are getting restless. And if you look in the groups, I would say it's probably anywhere from 60 to 40 to 50 to 50 of people that like the way it's going or the pacing, and others who don't. But they walk up to the graveyard, and they pull up to a car in particular, and Victor says, I want you to play in front of this car here. And we learn that this used to be Victor's mother's car. And Victor climbs up on the car, and he is just soaking in this moment because he requested Jade play a song, the Twinkling Star song, because this was a song his mother used to play for him. And this is a song that his mother would tell him to think about and play it in your head when he would hear the monsters killing people late at night. And to me, it really showed. I think the last 2 to 3 episodes, we're really starting to see why Victor is the way he is. The trauma that this guy has gone through has played a huge toll on this guy. And the fact that he's been in this place as a child for decades.
And you have to remember too, Ethan hasn't really seen any of the, or heard any of the
murdering and stuff. Because he's, he came into the town when they had the townsmen. Unlike Victor and them, their situation was,
pretty bad. I really wish I could see more of what it was like before the talisman,
Yep. So Jade is playing that song and Victor is just soaking it in. And then it transitions to Elgin. He goes into the church and he says, oh, I didn't know anybody was going to be in here. But guess who's inside the church? Sarah. And they have this pretty long, drawn out conversation about different things. Elgin talking about going to church as a young person. But even though he's gone, not seeming to be a very religious person. Talking about how his grandmother used to crochet a lot, crochet owls and different things like that. But they were just having this conversation. And I'm sitting there flabbergasted because this man ain't said nothing the last 5 6 episodes.
Nothing of substance.
People are asking, what are you seeing in your dreams? What do you got going on? And you ain't got nothing to say, but you want to sit in here talking about your grandma crocheting and shit. I was just like,
I think they did that to kind of set up for later, character. They had to have certain characters interact with each other so that later on it makes sense. And we could see now it kind of does make sense now because, he was helping her pick up her things after the altercation with Kenny. So, okay. But even then, I don't think that conversation needed to happen. I mean, be that long or...
It was long. I feel like they were flirting with each other. They were literally sitting there because even... He said something like, I don't recognize you because if you were at Connie House, I know I would have saw you. And it's like this flirtation thing is going on. And
I'm like, girl, you don't need to be flirting and smiling and biting your eyelashes. You just murdered 4 people. Like, you got bigger fish to fry and things to worry about than, getting your cookies tossed.
Yeah.
At Colony House.
Yeah. I was just mainly just taken back, but like I said.
Moon agrees.
Yeah. She over here deep in sleep. But Elgin, it's just, I don't know. To me, if Elgin was going to have a lot to say, that is not how I wanted him to have a lot of conversations for the first time. It just, to me, I'm just like, what are we doing here? So they talk about forgiveness and, Elgin is saying, do you believe in it? He says, well, no, not really. And, what have you done something that you need to be forgiven for? And this is when Sarah tells him that I killed my brother. And he says, well, was it by accident? And she says, well, you will find out everything very soon because she's like, bro, I'm the talk of the town. Yeah, but then it was like Elgin awkwardly got up like, well, let me get the fuck out of here. And I was like, nah, player, you went up in there flirting, cuz that's what you wanted.
Sit down.
That's what you wanted, shawty. That's what you wanted. So it transitions to Jim and Ethan, and they're back home. And Tabitha and their daughter, they're happy to see him. And after he's confronted Sarah, and she says, well, Tabitha asks, how did it go? And Jim's like, man, it went great. And I was just like, okay, went great. So then it transitions to Sarah. She actually goes inside the diner, and we get that long-awaited confrontation between Tian-Chen, which is Kenny's mother, and Sarah, because now she understands that Sarah is the reason why her husband is dead. And she is such an amazing person, because even though this woman is angry, even though this woman is upset, she says, I know why you're here. She still took care of that girl's belongings, had it in a freaking box, gave it to her, and said, you know, you took from me.
You put sadness in my
You
heart.
put hate inside of me. And then she said, here's your things. I no longer want to see you again. Powerful scene. And she continues to have some of the most gripping scenes.
Her and Kenny.
They're really having
I mean, outside of Harold Perrineau, and he's a great actor, but those two characters, Tian-Chen and Kenny, I think are the best actors on this show. They are really like,
they make the
they make the show.
They make the most of their moments when they're
absolutely
when the camera is on them. They grip you in, you know.
And I want more.
Mm-hmm. And this is when Sarah walks outside with her box, and Kenny meets her as she exits, grabs her damn box, throws her shit on the ground. We've never seen Kenny this out of control. And he says, I don't care what boy says. I don't care how special he thinks you are. I will drag your psycho ass in that box if you come around here again. And he throws that ornament that is so important to Sarah.
And you know what? Kenny's acting is so good that I actually felt bad for Sarah. Can you like, I actually felt bad. Like, I felt like a tear almost well up. Like, God damn,
he threw her
she
shit
can't catch a break.
break.
And it's like, I forget. Like, he made me forget, like, she's not the victim here.
Mm-hmm.
You know? That's acting.
No, I agree 100%. He made you feel sorry for her when we shouldn't be feeling sorry for her right now. You know? Because initially when he went on the rant, I was like, get her ass, Kenny. And then by the time he was done with it, I was like, damn, Kenny, did you have to go so hard? Like, I was like, damn.
Like it's like you watching somebody get beat up. You're like, okay, enough.
Yeah, but I don't know if you noticed, it looked like Kenny has changed clothes. But one of the other things I think they wanted us to see too is that Kenny still got that thing on his hip.
He got
that thing on his hip, which is pretty interesting and cool at the same time.
You watch your six, but I'm keeping this gun. I'm stay strapped up.
And then if you notice, guess who helped Sarah gather her shit?
Yeah, and it makes sense why they had that interaction in the church now. They needed a way to connect.
Yeah, and he's feeling all sad for her. I wonder if something's going to happen where Elgin's going to have to stand up for her.
Of course. That's how this goes.
Yeah. So then it transitions to Christy and her fiance. They're in a room bonding some more.
Getting
haircuts. And they show us what we have felt all along. Here. The old lady walks in and gives her a prescription of morphine, right? Two things I noticed. As she's giving her that medicine, Christy's fiance is mopping. But as Christy says, oh, morphine, Christy's fiance like pauses.
She's like, ear
shit.
hustling.
I need that, right? And what's interesting about it, because later on in the episode they foreshadow, we see that Christy is actually addicted to drugs because we see her go in the medicine cabinet. But I want to point this out because we're talking about the old lady. Is this lady a part of what's going on, right? And when we say a part of what's going on, we don't necessarily mean a person, right? Like, we kind of feel like that this is a game, a simulation, VR type simulation. And let me just make a quick parallel or example. I'm sure many people saw, what was that game? Squid Games. Mm-hmm. And we saw how the old man who was dying and was rich, he wanted to play the game. He wanted to be in the game. What if that old lady is somebody playing the game? They're in the VR game playing the game, because I find it incredibly funny that she drops that medicine off in front of Chrissy's fiance so that she can know that I just dropped off this morphine, this strong drug here that she eventually uses. I wonder if she part of the game, because we've always thought people are plants, but if we go with the theory that this is a VR, maybe it's not that people are necessarily plants anymore, but what if there are people actually playing the game? They want to be
aware.
Yeah, they're in the game, enjoying the game, playing the game, and they don't know it. They're in the system.
Also, I'm wondering, does Christy? I guess Christy doesn't know that her girlfriend or fiance is addicted to drugs.
Not yet.
And maybe she just got addicted for those 2 years or
I don't know how long she's been gone.
6 months.
But check this out too. What if Christy's fiance never finished medical school either? I don't believe she finished. She's been saying, yeah, I finished med school or whatever the case may be. What if she didn't finish? But we don't know. But now it transitions because the old lady said Chrissy's back in town, and this is when Chrissy didn't know. So then she's starting to go run to go figure things out, because she feels somewhat guilty because her and Sarah had a conversation, and she felt that conversation she had with her may have led to her taking on those drastic actions that she did. One of the things that was kind of interesting to me, and I was kind of wondering as the show was progressing, but we learned later on. At first, I thought that she knew that Sarah was back, and I couldn't understand why she wouldn't be more so trying to comfort Kenny. But then when the old lady explains to her that Sarah's back, that's the first time that Chrissy learns that she's back. So then I'm like, okay, that's why she hasn't been trying to comfort Kenny, because Kenny was always trying to comfort and lift her up. And I was just like, why is she not lifting Kenny up? But she had just found out.
Right.
So this is when Victor is speaking with Jade, and he's telling him that the guy in the picture, his name was Christopher. And Victor shows Christopher's car. And he said that Christopher was a wonderful person, that Christopher was the kind of person that helped people laugh, helped people survive this place through laughter. But he says that things changed dramatically, and all of a sudden Christopher stopped smiling, stopped cracking jokes and things like that. And he said he started doing that when he started drawing the symbols. And then Victor walks away from Jade, and he grabs. I kind of really felt for Victor. He goes over, it looks like he's gripping his mother's car, almost like trying to ground himself and bring that level of trauma down. And that's when he explains to him, he says that Christopher changed after he started drawing the symbols. And he said that his mom on that night told him to hide somewhere that he had never hidden before. And when he woke up, everyone in the town was dead. Creepy, scary, sad, traumatic, all wrapped up in one. And we've seen that before from Boyd's wife, where she went on a killing spree because she thought she had to wake everybody up
by killing them.
And makes you wonder, did something like this happen in the past?
But remember last year, in season 1, we got a glimpse of Victor as a kid coming out of his hiding spot and seeing everybody around him dead. But it didn't look like it was the monsters doing. It looked like, from what I can remember, the deaths looked pretty clean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you talking about, they didn't look ripped up. So it would have been maybe somebody killed them. Maybe Christopher killed them, or, maybe somebody went around town stabbing, shooting people. We don't know.
And this brings me to Candace's crackpot theory of the week. Our favorite segment, right?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that this situation resets itself. Remember how Victor was constantly last year, and now it's talking about the trees changing, right? Rotating or whatever. And these occurrences are starting to happen again where, Jade, who's supposed to be the comic relief, I guess, of the town, is seeing the symbols again. Sarah is trying to kill people because she thinks that's how they're going away home, like Boyd's wife. There was Victor was a child when that huge massacre happened in the town. And his mom gave him ways to cope with what was going on. Tabitha gives Ethan ways to cope with what's going on about being afraid by telling and making up these stories. Yep. So I feel like there's some parallels and things are going to get really out of control again, and pretty much like there's going to be some type of massacre and it's going to reset everything.
Yeah, because and we kind of talked about this and going along with your theory. People are starting to ask, okay, not only are people starting to ask questions, but I think that Jim's questions in particular are most important. The fact that Jim is saying, what if somebody is watching us, right? Because if people start to come to the conclusion that this is some big ass game and that they're being watched, now people start to react and act differently than they normally would. You know what I'm saying? Because right now they're just surviving. But now if it transitions to, look, this shit is a game and somebody's watching us, I guarantee you everybody's behavior then changes. You act different. And now the game is not as intriguing or interesting, or this experiment of what they are trying to figure out or see. Those things probably will not be occurring anymore, which may lend to them starting the game over with a new group of people. Just a theory. So it transitions to Tabitha.
Maybe that's what the bus was. Their chance to restart everything.
Introducing new characters, new challenges and stuff, you know, different things. So it transitions to Tabitha. She's stacking a game in the forest, and where her and Victor exited the forest when they left the cave. Once again, she still has not told her husband that she went in that damn cave and saw the monsters sleeping there, which could be some interesting information because the monsters are asleep. Maybe you can kill them while they're asleep. You know, we don't know. But then she's playing the game, and then she's calling to those kids, and those kids come, and they're saying this weird word, this really weird word that they're stating. They surround her, they're touching on her, and they're looking like they're attacking her. She's going crazy, and then she wakes up out of it, and she realizes, once again, it looks like she's just having a vision, which is pretty interesting. So then it transitions, and we see Randall. He's taking he's taking a chair out of the bus, and he's throwing it on the ground. Boyd stops by to watch him momentarily. I think that was done intentionally because I think Boyd knows he's up to something. But then Jim walks up to Boyd and kind of stops his concentration of him watching Randall. And Jim walks up and says he does not necessarily agree with what he's doing with Sarah, but he was able to look at Sarah when his son was talking with her. And now he's starting to have some compassion for her because he says he sees a broken kid. And he said he's seen a lot of people get pushed off the edge in this place. So Jim is starting to have a little bit of a soft spot for her. And this is when Jim asks once again, he on that shit. Jim says, have you ever wondered if this was the point of this place? Basically saying to push people all the way to the edge. And he shares with Boyd that he heard a voice over the radio. And this voice said, Jim, what the hell is your wife doing under that house digging? And nobody else should know that. And this is the first time Boyd has heard it. But then Jim also says something really interesting in comparing it to experiments that occurred after and before World War II. What if this was a game simulation and we saw in season 1 those old soldiers? So this is when it transitioned to Boyd. He's in a diner and music is playing. It's a song called In Dreams by Roy Orbison, I believe. And then it transitions to the fiance. We see her drinking or taking morphine that the old lady brought in there from the medicine cabinet. She's drinking it, putting it on her tongue. Sarah walks by Ethan while the music is still playing, and Ethan mad dogs the hell out of her. And Randall transitions back to him as the camera has panned across the whole town. Randall sitting on top of the bus. He's sharpening a piece of wood, looking like he's getting ready to create something with a sharp end so he could probably attack or kill one of these monsters. Really interesting stuff there. Now, as it relates to this episode, I think they gave us a lot of good details. We know that it looks like one of the monsters is going to be attacked or something like that by Randall. I always theorized that the worms were something that were beneficial toward Boyd. And I think that Boyd, in some form or faction, is going to use these powers. He probably doesn't know he has them yet, but in some form or fashion, he's going to have to use them. Which would be interesting because we talked about in our last video, there's a scene that was shown in like the trailer for season 2, and it looks like Ellis, his son, is in a van stuck, and he looks like he's in turmoil there. So I don't know if that happens during episode 6 or not, but I think they've done a lot to set up for, I think in episode 6 we're going to see some crazy shit go down. So the final thing that we said we wanted to start doing was kind of giving our ratings. And what did you call it? I love what you called it.
How many cans of peaches do you get
this episode? Right? So 10 cans of peaches would be absolutely amazing.
Well, why don't we do 5 cans of peaches? Makes it easier.
All right, 5 cans of peaches is amazing. 0 cans of peaches is not good. All right. What you got, Candace?
I give this episode 3 cans of peaches. I just feel like this is another filler episode where not much really happened and it didn't move the story forward. But I still give it a 3 because, I mean, Kenny's performance and Tian-Chen's acting performance was stellar.
I give it a 3.5. I think it did move it forward a tad bit. Sarah finally got introduced back to the community. We see that there's some people that have some sympathy for her. We see Randall, he's building, he's making something there. I think that they're gradually moving us forward. I do at times, there are times I'm like, man, I wish it was a little bit more action, and not necessarily the monsters, but sometimes I do wish that a little bit more was happening. But overall, I would give it a 3.5. You guys catch us in the midweek where we'll watch the episode again, give some more feedback on the episode, and maybe dive a little bit deeper into some of the theories that we touched on today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Peace.